Hey everyone, it's Kelly. Thanks so much for joining me today. I am back with a new 12 by 12 scrapbook process video, and this video is for Altenew for their April 2019 blog hop. This is the new release blog hop for their washi tapes and their embossing paste. So I'm also going to be using a paper pack from a recent Altenew release. This is the Verdant Walk 6x6 paper pack, and I've done a little bit of work with my Cricut. I'm going to be using some rolled flowers on my layout today. This is one of the washi tapes in the new release. This is the Botanical Rhapsody washi tape, and I've already done a little bit of fussy cutting with this washi tape. All I did was add it to a piece of white cardstock and then fussy cut the images. I'm also going to be using this roll of washi tape on my layout today, and this is another washi from the new release. This is the Teal Shadow washi tape, and here you can see what I did with that first roll of washi tape. I just added it to a piece of white cardstock, and the images are large, so they're really easy to fussy cut. So I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and just trim around some of those floral images because I want to keep them all pretty much whole. I don't really want to tear this washi tape, and then I'll just use those same scissors and fussy cut those images. Now I'm going to start working on getting these rolled flowers off my cutting mat, and I did use several pattern papers, and I actually ran this through my Cricut twice. So I cut 4 different pieces of 6x6 pattern paper, and these rolled flowers are actually from an older Cricut cartridge that I have in my stash. And here you can see what I'm going to do with those images that I had cut with my Cricut. I'm just going to roll them. If you've never seen this done before, you just basically start at the skinny end and just roll it with your fingers until you get to the bigger end of the flower, and the bigger end will act as a base. So you just roll it tight, let it go, and it'll spring loose, and then just take a little bit of adhesive. I am using hot glue, and then you'll just press the center down into the hot glue and it will form a flower. After the glue was fully set, I did take my fingers and pushed out on the petals just to give it a little bit of a more realistic touch. I just folded them down with my fingers, and it still leaves a lot of dimension, but it does flatten them slightly. So I did a lot of work off camera and rolled all of those flowers, and you can see them sitting in a pile off to the left side of my layout. And now I'm coming in with the Altenew embossing paste and a stencil from Altenew. This is the sketched line stencil, and I am just adding a little bit of detail work on this white cardstock background. So at this point, the embossing paste is still completely wet. It has not dried at all. I had just walked away from my desk for a moment to clean off the stencil and to clean off my palette knife, and I added some splatters to the modeling paste. I kind of wanted to see what it was going to do, how it was going to react when the modeling paste was still wet, and I added those splatters. So because I added the splatters to the background when the embossing paste was still wet, I wasn't able to do the packaging technique or anything to help spread that color around. Otherwise, I would have messed up the stencil work that I did with that embossing paste. So at this point, it's pretty much dry. It's still a little bit wet, but I decided that I needed to add more color. I wasn't happy with just the color that I had added with the splatters. So I took a blue mist from my stash and just spritzed the background. And now I'm taking a napkin and I'm just lightly dabbing on top of the embossing paste, and it's still just very, very, very slightly wet. So as I'm dabbing it up, the texture from the napkin that I was using was leaving a little bit of an impression in that embossing paste, and I really like how it turned out. It just gave it a little bit more texture. So it was basically texture on top of texture. So I love when that kind of stuff can happen in scrapbooking because it's such a two-dimensional type hobby. So anytime I can add any extra texture or dimension, I'm all for it. So speaking of dimension, there is going to be a lot of it on this layout because of these 3D rolled flowers that I'm going to be adding. I had played around a little bit off camera, just trying to get placement of the sizes and the colors that I wanted to place on the background. So I do have my phone off to the side and I'm using that as a reference. And I am just adding these flowers back onto the layout, just trying to get them in the right place. So then I'm going to bring the photos in and I'm going to position them on the top right hand side of the layout. And oh my goodness, those pictures, they were taken about 10 years ago. I recently did another scrapbook layout that I have a process video for on my YouTube channel. of a picture that was taken at the same time that these two photos were taken. So I'll just briefly talk about that because I did talk about it a little bit in that last video. But these pictures are of my son. They were taken about 10 years ago. He's 11 now. He was just a little over a year old here. And oh my goodness, that little baby face. I'm not sure when he grew up or when that happened, but these are actually photos that my mom had taken of him. She was taking him on his very first wagon ride in a wagon that she had purchased for him, and he absolutely loved it. So I just loved his cute little smiling face, and I needed to use all the pictures that I could find from that day. And I actually have a few more photos from this day printed, so you may see the same baby face in another layout coming up very soon. Okay, so now I'm starting to bring in some of those stems and florals from the washi tape that I had fussy cut, and I'm just adding them around the outside edge of those 3D rolled flowers. I did add my title, Happy Spring, and it is from an alpha set from one of the Altenew scrapbook collections. It's from the Live Your Dream collection. And I'm just adding some more splatters. I wanted to have a little bit more of that coral color, and I added the splatters right on top of the washi tape, and it did really well. I wasn't sure how well it would set up on the washi tape. Sometimes washi tape is kind of slick and things tend to smear if you try to write on it or color on it. But this dried really well. I didn't have any problems with the color smudging or running as I was continuing on with my layout. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the embossing paste from Altenew. I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to embossing paste or modeling paste. I have quite a few in my stash because I absolutely cannot stand it when a white modeling or embossing paste dries transparent. I hate that. And so I have some in my stash that I've tried. They've dried transparent. So I save them for other uses, like when I'm going to add color to them and things like that, just to alter them slightly. But I am really, really pleased with this Altenew embossing paste. It dried very white. It was very opaque and it was light. And I like that too, especially when I'm using it on scrapbook layouts. I don't like it when it's really heavy and it likes to weigh down the paper or it likes to crinkle the paper, and I didn't have any problems with it, and I highly, highly recommend it. All right, so getting back to the layout, I added a few more of those fussy cut washi leaves, and then I'm going to bring in my journaling, and I typed this with my We Are Memory Keepers typecast typewriter, and then I just cut it into thin strips and added some adhesive to the back and then added it to the layout. So this layout is done. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. I didn't feel like it needed a lot of embellishing because it already has so much going on with the washi tape leaves and flowers and then those 3D rolled flowers. But I love the pops of color and I love the dimension. Altenew really does have some amazingly beautiful products. So I'm going to bring in the still shots. If you happen to be watching this video on my YouTube channel, I do want to encourage you to head to my blog so that way you can hop along on the blog hop. Altenew also is offering a couple giveaways, and I do have all of those details in my blog post. So I do want to encourage you to head there. I do want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will be back again soon with a new layout and process video.